Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Modi meets the visiting Finnish President Stubb, and both nations to boost strategic ties in tech, energy and defense sectors. Stubb says that Finland supports India's permanent membership of the UNSC. EAM Dr. S. Jaishankar dials his Iran and Oman counterparts, makes the second call to Tehran in 6 days, underscores New Delhi's concern over regional stability as West Asia tensions escalate. West Asia conflict enters the 6th day. Israel strikes Iran. Tehran hits US targets in the Gulf. Historic Nepal polls see strong youth participation, 60% voter turnout recorded. The Finnish President Alexander Stubb's state visit to India highlights the deepening strategic partnership between the two nations. Amid global shifts, leaders are advancing cooperation in emerging technologies, also sustainability and trade. Our next report has the details.
Finnish President Alexander Stubb is on a state visit to India. This marks his first trip to the country as president. He is accompanied by a high-level delegation of ministers, officials and business leaders. President Stubb held bilateral talks with PM Modi at Hyderabad House in New Delhi, focusing on expanding cooperation in digitalization, sustainability, clean energy, quantum computing, semiconductors, defense and space. India and Finland signed 3 key MOUs during the visit to enhance bilateral cooperation, covering environmental cooperation, migration and mobility partnership, and statistics cooperation. These agreements pave the way for collaboration in areas like AI, 6G, and critical minerals.
ये पार्टनरशिप AI से लेकर 6G टेलीकॉम तक, क्लीन एनर्जी से लेकर क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग तक, कई हाईटेक क्षेत्रों में हमारे सहयोग को गति और ऊर्जा देगा। साथ ही डिफेंस, स्पेस, सेमीकंडक्टर और क्रिटिकल मिनरल जैसे की सेक्टर्स में भी साझेदारी और गहरी बढ़ेगी।
PM Modi emphasized India's commitment to peaceful resolutions amid global tensions. He highlighted shared democratic values driving the new strategic partnership between India and Europe.
आज विश्व एक अस्थिरता और अनिश्चितता के दौर से गुजर रहा है। यूक्रेन से लेकर वेस्ट एशिया तक दुनिया के कई हिस्से उसमें संघर्ष की स्थिति बनी हुई है। ऐसे ग्लोबल एनवायरनमेंट में भारत और यूरोप दुनिया की 2 बड़ी डिप्लोमेटिक पावर्स अपने संबंधों के सुनहरे दौर में प्रवेश कर रहे हैं।
PM Modi said the upcoming India-EU free trade agreement would enhance trade and technology ties and called for deeper Arctic research collaboration. President Stubb recounted his last visit to India and hailed the partnership as important given the current geoeconomics and India's economic heft.
Salute your diplomatic skills when you say that we stand here as 2 big democracies. There is one big and one slightly smaller, but I think the key message is that we share values. I would also like to congratulate you for your leadership. My last visit to India was actually in 2013 in my capacity as Minister of Trade. And the change that I just see on the streets of New Delhi and that I will most probably see in Mumbai in a couple of days is palpable. This is an economic miracle that we're witnessing, and I wish you all the best.
President Stubb's visit signals a maturing India-Finland partnership transforming long-standing goodwill into a strategic alliance amid shifting geopolitics. Bureau Report, DD India.
And President Draupadi Murmu welcomed the Finnish President Dr. Alexander Stubb at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi on Thursday. During the meeting, President Murmu emphasized that India views Finland as a valued and trusted partner. She also expressed satisfaction that India-Finland relations have matured into a dynamic partnership with innovation, clean technologies, education, and economic cooperation serving as its key pillars. In a follow-up engagement, Vice President of India, C.P. Radhakrishnan, called on President Stubb in New Delhi. The discussions further highlighted the growing collaboration between the two nations and reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening bilateral ties. India and Finland have reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening bilateral relations, with both sides agreeing to double trade by 2030. Speaking at a press briefing following the recent visit of the Finnish President, the Secretary West in the Ministry of External Affairs, Sibi George, said that the relationship between the two countries has grown steadily over the decades. He noted that the partnership has evolved into one driven by innovation and technology, reflecting shared priorities in emerging sectors and economic cooperation.
India and Finland enjoy warm and friendly relationship. Over the decades, our relationship has evolved into a forward-looking, innovation and technology-driven partnership. Finnish companies have strong presence in India in areas such as telecommunications, digital solutions, clean energy, and smart manufacturing. Bilateral trade in goods and services is close to $3 billion. Trade and investment are expected to expand further with the coming in force of the India-EU Free Trade Agreement. In this respect, we have also agreed to double the trade by 2030.
Meanwhile, Secretary George also announced that India and Finland will co-host the World Circular Economy Forum, highlighting the growing collaboration between the two nations in sustainability initiatives.
Finland's globally recognized expertise in clean technologies, renewable energy, and sustainable urban solutions makes it a natural partner for India. India and Finland will also be co-hosting the World Circular Economy Forum in India later this year. During the visit, both sides have reviewed and renewed the MOU on environmental cooperation to further the collaboration on sustainability and circular economy, including bioenergy and waste-to-energy solutions, power storage, green hydrogen, as well as wind, solar, and small hydropower.
India's flagship geopolitical conference, the Raisina Dialogue, began in New Delhi today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the dialogue along with the President of Finland. Global leaders, policymakers, and strategic experts from across the world are taking part in discussions and pressing global challenges.
The Raisina Dialogue, India's premier forum on geopolitics and global strategy, began in New Delhi with leaders and experts from across the world gathering to discuss the evolving global order. The conference, hosted by the Ministry of External Affairs and the Observer Research Foundation, has over the years emerged as one of the most influential platforms for dialogue on global security, economy, and diplomacy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the event along with the President of Finland, Alexander Stubb. In his inaugural address, the President of Finland spoke about global cooperation and the need for nations to work together in an increasingly complex geopolitical environment and extended support for India's UNSC membership.
The voices of the global south must be heard much louder than today. The obvious place to start is the UN Security Council. I have proposed 2 permanent seats for Asia, 2 for Africa, and 1 for Latin America. And let me be clear, India should have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council.
The Raisina Dialogue has steadily grown into a major global platform, often compared with forums like the Munich Security Conference, reflecting India's rising voice in global geopolitics. As the world navigates conflicts, technological disruptions, and economic uncertainty, India is positioning itself as a key voice, shaping conversations on global governance and strategic cooperation. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar highlighted India's expanding diplomatic engagement and its role in shaping a more balanced and inclusive global order.
Our discussions over the next few days will be about new capabilities, military, economic, energy, human resources, and above all, technology. AI particularly awaits us.
For India, the conference also reflects the country's growing role as a global power, shaping conversations and building partnerships in an increasingly multipolar world. With leaders from dozens of countries participating, the dialogue is expected to host a wide range of discussions over the coming days on the future of global governance and strategic stability. Bureau Report, DD India.
The West Asia conflict is escalating rapidly, with fresh strikes and missile attacks reported across the region. Israel has launched a new wave of attacks on Iran, while Tehran has responded with strikes targeting Gulf countries. Explosions have been reported in several cities, including Tehran and Doha, raising fears of a wider regional war. Rabindra Chauhan reports.
The West Asia conflict intensified on Thursday as Israel launched a fresh wave of strikes on Iran, with Iran responding with attacks targeting Gulf nations including Qatar and Bahrain.
From the first moment, the Northern Governorate worked quickly to prepare to shelter. One of them is Ghazi al-Qusaybi, and the second one is the Sheikh Mohammed bin Khalifa al-Khalifa. And we received around 2,000 residents from different nationality and different religions.
However, Iran's strike on central Israel on Thursday caused no casualties, according to emergency teams on the ground. Explosions were reported in Tehran and Doha, with thick smoke seen rising over parts of the Qatari capital. The fighting has rapidly expanded beyond Iran and Israel. In Lebanon, Israeli strikes targeted Hezbollah positions in Beirut, leaving buildings damaged and civilians displaced. Iran has also targeted Kurdish groups in Iraq, with Azerbaijan also warning of retaliation after a drone strike injured civilians near an airport. Meanwhile, Gulf countries including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar say they have intercepted Iranian missiles aimed at cities and energy infrastructure. Iranian authorities say more than 1,000 people, including civilians and military personnel, have been killed since the conflict began, although the figures remain unverified. As the escalating war has disrupted air travel and transportation, Israeli Transportation Minister Miri Regev has announced that Israel will reopen its skies for departing flights starting Sunday. Concerns are also growing that the conflict could have severe economic consequences if it continues to spread. The situation remains highly volatile, with fears that more countries could be drawn into the widening war. Bureau Report, DD India.
The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said on Thursday that 4 additional Typhoon fighter jets would be sent to Qatar as the conflict escalates, insisting that the UK has the right plan for defense. The US President Donald Trump also criticized Starmer for failing to provide sufficient support for his strikes on Iran. Starmer said that the UK had the right plan and had already been pre-deploying military equipment across the region before the start of the conflict.
I can announce today that we're sending 4 additional Typhoon jets to join our squadron in Qatar, to strengthen our defensive operations in Qatar and across the region.
And as West Asia remains on edge, the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, on Thursday spoke with his counterparts in Iran and Oman amid the escalating tensions in West Asia. In a social media post on X, Dr. Jaishankar said, and I quote, "Had a telecom with Iranian Foreign Minister Saeed Abbas Araghchi this afternoon." In another post, Dr. Jaishankar said, and I quote, "Spoke to FM Saeed Badr bin Hamad bin Hamoud al-Busaidi of Oman on the ongoing conflict in West Asia." India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, on behalf of the Government of India, signed the book of condolence for Iran's late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei at the Iranian embassy in New Delhi on Thursday. Khamenei was killed in a joint US-Israeli airstrike on February 28, an incident that has plunged the West Asian region into a war. Vikram Misri also met the Iranian ambassador to India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with French President Emmanuel Macron on Thursday, discussing shared concerns over the evolving situation in West Asia. Taking to the social media platform X, Prime Minister Modi emphasized the need for the return to dialogue and diplomacy. The Prime Minister also said that the two leaders will continue to engage closely and coordinate efforts towards the early restoration of peace and stability in the West Asian region. The US House of Representatives was expected Thursday to reject the effort to curb President Donald Trump's authority on waging war against Iran, as the president faces fierce criticism over launching this conflict without seeking the approval of Congress. Lawmakers are due to vote on a bipartisan resolution led by the Republican Thomas Macy and the Democrat Ro Khanna that would require President Trump to obtain congressional authorization before continuing military operations against Tehran. But the measure is widely expected to fail, a day after the Senate rejected a similar effort, underscoring the Congress's limited appetite, particularly among Republicans, for confronting the White House in the early days of the conflict. Even if it were to pass, Trump could veto it, a step that would require two-thirds majorities in both chambers to override an almost impossible threshold for the current Congress. Well, 60% of Nepal's 19 million voters have turned out to vote in different polling stations countrywide in the Himalayan nation to elect a new legislature, which will decide who heads the next government. Expectations of a political shift in Nepal have been sky high since the ouster of the KP Sharma Oli government in September last year, as a result of a youth-led protest which has been seeking a generational shift from the old guard, which had been dominating the nation's politics for about 2 decades.
Voters across Nepal turned out in significant numbers as the country held its latest elections with around 60% voter turnout reported nationwide. Officials say the voting was largely peaceful as citizens cast their ballots to decide the country's next political leadership. Coming after the youth-led protests in September last year, these elections are being viewed by many as historic. Polling began at 7 a.m. and continued until 5 p.m. with long queues seen at several polling stations across the country. Voters turned out in large numbers to exercise their franchise with high expectations, particularly the youth, who are considered a decisive factor in these polls.
I'm feeling really excited, like so much eager to know the results and everything. People are in the ministry now, and then Prime Minister is more educated now, because like we really didn't have anyone educated as much as now. There are really good candidates, and I hope they all win and make our country great.
We are finally here in election day to vote, and we voted for the best candidate as we thought. And so I really want as everyone wants to minimize the corruptions, so we can't hope for the sudden changes, but least thing they can do is less corruption. And the next thing is development in education and hospital area.
While many expressed happiness after casting their votes, they also said the next government must focus on tackling corruption and creating more opportunities for young people.
My expectation from the upcoming government, whoever comes to power, is basically we need a little bit of stability in the country.
With Nepal following a mixed electoral system, each voter was given 2 ballot papers, one for the first-past-the-post system and another for proportional representation. Security arrangements were tight across the country, with additional security personnel deployed to ensure the elections remained safe and peaceful. Results for the first-past-the-post ballots are expected within 24 hours, while the proportional representation results will take longer to be finalized. These crucial elections are expected to shape the political direction of Nepal in the coming years and determine how the country responds to the demands for reform voiced by its citizens. Report by Siddharth Bharadwaj for DD India.
Well, in response to media queries regarding the elections in Nepal, the Ministry of External Affairs in India, the spokesperson Randeep Jaiswal said, and I quote, "We welcome the successful conduct of elections and the exercise of their democratic mandate by the citizens of Nepal today, which have seen an enthusiastic participation. We congratulate Prime Minister Sushila Karki, the government and the people of Nepal, as well as various stakeholders for successfully holding these polls, which took place against the backdrop of exceptional circumstances last year. India has consistently supported peace, progress and stability in Nepal, and in keeping with our commitment, provided logistical supplies as per the request from Government of Nepal for these elections. We look forward to working with the new Government of Nepal to further build on the robust, multifaceted ties between our two countries and the peoples for mutual benefit." Well, the United Nations has hailed India's banking inclusion program as a global model for empowering women and girls. The Director of Policy at the UN Women, Sandra Hendricks, said that India's initiative of providing digital identification and easier access to bank accounts for women has set an example for financial inclusion worldwide. She also noted that the government's efforts have enabled over 290 million women to access banking services. The Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, now in its 12th year, has significantly expanded financial access, with women holding about 56% of the accounts opened under the scheme. Brazilian lawmakers have finalized their approval for a free trade agreement between the South American economic bloc Mercosur and the European Union following a Senate vote on Wednesday. The collective approval by the legislatures of Mercosur members, they are Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay, is a necessary step for the trade agreement to take effect following more than 2 decades of negotiations. Australia and Canada have signed new agreements on critical minerals as the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney made a landmark address to the Australian Parliament on Wednesday. Introducing Prime Minister Carney in Parliament, the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that his address represented the closeness of the ties between the two nations. He also said that both the countries are middle powers in the world that is changing and have decided to back each other. Carney, in his address, thereafter echoed the sentiment, saying that in a world of great power rivalry, middle powers have a choice: compete for favour or combine for strength. Carney's stop in Australia included the first address to Australia's Parliament by a Canadian leader since 2007. And on the critical minerals agreement, Albanese said Australia would join Canada's G7 Critical Minerals Production Alliance, an initiative to diversify and secure global critical minerals production and supply. The Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his leadership, for his discipline and focus on delivering benefits to citizens, while signalling Canada's intent to deepen cooperation with India across key sectors.
He's very focused on delivery, I'll call it to the rural household, but, we would say in Canada, Monsieur, Madame, tout le monde, the person on the street sort of thing. So a huge motivation for the financial reform transformations, the payment systems transformation, UPI and other things, was to get money directly, as you know, directly to individuals without leakage, shall we say, in the system in real time, and to bring people, hundreds of millions of people into the formal economy. And he's very focused on that aspect of delivery. So here he's, up at this global level, operating, India rising, challenges, but much positive, but a leader who keeps bringing it back down to that level. So there's much to see there.
Well, speaking at the Lowy Institute in Sydney on Wednesday, Mark Carney, I beg your pardon, described Prime Minister Modi as a unique leader with an exceptional work ethic, noting his long public service without a break.
He is unique, I would say. 25 years, I was telling Glenn Stevens this, 25 years, and he has not taken a day off. 25 years straight as either Chief Minister in Gujarat or Prime Minister, not one day off. Every weekend he is out, like you, Francois Philippe, every weekend he's out campaigning. He gets 250,000 people at his rallies, you get 25, but that's okay. That's good. That's good in rural, it's pas mal du tout. But, so first off is just the level of the work that's there.
Well, Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, announced on Wednesday that Venezuela will soon present reforms to its main mining law. And this is going to happen to Parliament following talks in Caracas with the U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, which happened and where both sides emphasized cooperation and investment opportunities. Burgum arrived with representatives from more than 24 U.S. mining firms, highlighting potential billions of dollars in investment and job creation. The visit reflects Washington's effort to expand American involvement in Venezuela's oil, gas, and mining sectors. The proposed law aims to allow foreign companies to develop resources such as gold, diamonds, and rare earth minerals. Rodriguez said discussions covered various mineral sectors, while separate energy talks would be covered in meetings on Thursday.
We would like to ask for the cooperation of all members of the National Assembly to act swiftly. We want to be able to present the people of Venezuela, as well as national and international business sectors, with investment and development opportunities in the mining sector.
Let's look at some other stories making news from around the world. Chloe Kelly has become England's first woman footballer to be honoured with a Barbie doll of her own. And the doll was unveiled by the toy company Mattel as part of its International Women's Day celebrations and includes several of Kelly's signature features. In Vietnam, painting and drawing are helping young people express emotions that they struggle to put into words. Art therapy is increasingly becoming a way of Gen Z to deal with rising pressure and also finding emotional balance. Magnolia trees have begun blooming at Istanbul's historic Ihlamur pavilions, decorating the gardens in pink and white and attracting visitors to enjoy the seasonal beauty alongside the site's architectural heritage. Well, still to come here on DD India News Hour, we'll get your expert opinion on India-Finland ties.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life.
The land of forests, nature's hidden jewel. Jharkhand is a traveler's paradise. Welcome to Delhi.
You're watching DD India News. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. Prime Minister Modi meets the visiting Finnish President Stubb. In both nations to boost strategic ties in tech, energy and defense sectors, Stubb says that Finland supports India's permanent membership of the UNSC. EAM Dr. S. Jaishankar dials his Iran and Omani counterparts, makes a second call to Tehran in 6 days, underscores New Delhi's concern over regional stability as West Asia tensions escalate. West Asia conflict enters the 6th day. Israel strikes Iran, Tehran hits US targets in the Gulf. Historic Nepal polls see strong youth participation, 60% voter turnout recorded. Well, in the light of Finland President Alexander Stubb's visit to India and also expanding cooperation between India and Finland, we have with us Ambassador A. Manikam. He's a former Indian ambassador to Finland, joining us from Delhi. And Vivek Mishra is a visiting fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, also joining us from Delhi. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Ambassador Manikam, how does President Stubb's first state visit as the head of state of Finland reshape, the diplomatic relationship between India and the Nordic region?
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak. For the Prime Minister of Finland, Mr. Alexander Stubb, India is not new. During my time in 2010-14, he was a foreign minister. He had visited India almost every year. And he is a great admirer of India. And India has, since my time there, has strengthened the relationship with Finland in many fields. There is a lot India can benefit from the technology, and also one of the main foundation of the relationship is in the telecommunication industry.
Right.
If you recollect Nokia.
Yes.
Nokia phone was once upon a time the most popular in the world and in India.
Yes.
Even though the phone has come down, or it has changed hand, manufacturing of phone. But the telecommunication equipments which are used in the telecom industry in India are manufactured by the Nokia. And interestingly, the software engineers support is done by some of the leading Indian companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, and others. So there are a large number of Indian IT personnel who are working for Nokia. So this is one of the main
Okay, so you put that context into context, the deep relationship that we have, especially in the tech sector. But Dr. Mishra, how is Finland's growing partnership with India perceived within the broader EU, especially when there's such a lot of shifting geopolitics and various other interests there?
Well, thank you for having me. I think one of the important things in the context of India-Finland relations is really trade and newer aspects of trade, particularly technology, sustainability. So we have elevated the relationship to strategic relationship, particularly in digitization, and sustainability. I think those are two key focus areas for the future of the relationship, but not just this relationship, but I think the broader contours on which I think the emerging economies are moving. And I think there was a great assertion in Prime Minister Stubb's speech where he highlighted the importance of India as an economy and reasserted the external affairs comments earlier that Europe needs to rebalance with Asia, and particularly with India. So I think in that context, it's an emerging relationship.
Yes, he's the head of state. He's President Stubb. Might I just add, right? Ambassador Manikam, what concrete opportunities do you see then, these MOUs that have been signed, environment, mobility and things like that? What does it open up in terms of India's long-term interests? You've already said that, Nokia, they have engineering, I think they have a lot of cooperation also in renewable energy and things like that in the past. What are the new areas that we can look at?
There are many areas they are already working in India. It's not known publicly. So environment is a very wide subject. For example, you take water treatment, sewage treatment, and Finland is the land of thousands of lakes, and they used to have the polluted lakes, and they have systematically gone ahead and then clean their lakes, and the water treated from the municipalities which enters the lakes, they have to be a particular standard, and it's properly regulated, and it's to be released as per the standard. If there is any violation, there is a punishment. This technology is one of the best technology they have. Somehow we try to bring them here, but we have the tendering process, so there's a big struggle going on. This is one area. Sewage is one area, I said. Then many in that field, for example, forest maintenance. We had a 5-year contract agreement, MOU with Finland to train our Indian Forest Service officers in their training institute in the northern part of Finland. About 40 officers used to come. They were trained how to maintain the forest. When you know that Finland is one of the largest supplier of, it used to be largest supplier of pulp.
Right.
And how they manage the forest resources and how they still keep the resources intact. That is one area where they can teach us. The other area is medical devices. Medical devices, in fact, most of the IVD technology equipments are manufactured by the US multinational companies.
Okay.
The innovation takes place in Finland. Finland is highest per capita if you take the highest per capita innovation, they are the number 1 or number 2 in the world. And so the multinational companies, they identified the opportunities, they come and immediately buy them and give a big grant and then try to encourage the students. And so that is one area. So there are many areas, there are plenty of opportunities in technology.
True. Dr. Mishra, so you've highlighted quite a few areas, Ambassador Manikam. Dr. Mishra, what does the Raisina Dialogue keynote address of President Stubb signal about Europe's also positioning in terms of India?
I think there was a clear signal that, countries of Europe are looking to the global south, and particularly you can hear that conversations even before in how the conversations of G7 are now about G20, and Europe is about the Asia Pacific and the global south and the Indo-Pacific. So I think those conversations were already there, but I think what President Stubb's remarks really underscored is the urgency of it. And I think he tethered the idea of growth to global south with India in between. And I think to my mind, that stood out significantly. And those, the strong trends really that he highlighted were in technology, AI, quantum computing, where I think the technology that European countries, and particularly Finland, can bring, and the scaling capacity that India can bring, can really conjoin to become unique opportunities for both countries.
Ambassador Manikam, how can India leverage Finland's expertise? We already talked about environment, you said it's broad. Let's say clean energy, in AI that's emerging. And you talked about Nokia, but now we have moved from 5G, we're looking at 6G. Where does Finland stand in terms of these things in innovation, in the innovation ecosystem?
5G or 6G, Nokia is an important player because telecommunication is a very strategic asset. So we have other competitors, but Finland is one country which we can trust and rely on them because telecommunication is very vital, that's I said. Now AI, Finland has the best environment in terms of data center. because it's a cold country. You don't need air conditioning. So many of the international companies have huge data centers in Finland. And so definitely in AI, we have a lot of scope. And as I said, Indian companies are already there. 4 or 5 of them already there. They are working on it. And I'm sure that they are using that opportunity, their presence there in developing more on this. And the other area where I would like to come back is the treatment of waste management. That is also Finland has got best technologies.
Right.
And that we can learn from them a lot in that field.
Right. Also, Dr. Mishra, Prime Minister says that, Finland is a role model actually in the field of education. To what extent, can the two countries collaborate in taking the education sector forward?
So I think there's a definitive force in what the Prime Minister has highlighted, particularly because of the context and the global context, and particularly of the United States. I think there is a talent mobility agreement that has been signed, and particularly education is at the center of it, because if you have seen the numbers that are naturally aligned with the West are going down, I think there's recalibration in terms of where India wants to diversify its talent and people mobility, and I think Finland is right at the center there. So in that regard, I think it is really important that we diversify not just our supply chains, but also our talent mobility, and education sector is also very, very relevant in that context.
Ambassador Manikam, also could, Finland and India cooperate in critical minerals, semiconductors and things like that? Could it help Europe's supply chain resilience? Because, after all, there's only one country that seems to be dominating this sector, and that's China. You were talking more largely about technology and telecom and things like that. That's why.
Yeah, I forgot to mention one important area, that is ocean technology, ocean development. In the Lapland, Finland, they have set up an international university for exploration in the North Pole and South Pole developments, the climate, how it's changing, how the shipping industries are opening up, what are the minerals are available in those. So they already are working on it, and we had an MOU, I don't know whether it's still there. Our Department of Ocean Development used to train our officers there, and they used to go for attachment. And we were also trying to buy from the ice-breaking ships, because they manufacture one of the best
Arctic research interests, the Arctic research areas.
Yes, they have Arctic. This was is the one area where we can definitely develop. As per the minerals concerned, I don't know whether they have any mineral resources. But mining technology, they have the best technology. There's one company called Wärtsilä. Wärtsilä is one of the biggest company in Finland, which supplies a lot of products. L&T is having a very strategic relationship with them, and it's not published information. It's not published outside, but cooperation between L&T and Wärtsilä is a big business which is going on.
A final word from you, Dr. Mishra. So Finland also supports India as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. To what extent, is all this support going to be brought to bear on changing the UN, about bringing reforms in the UN at the end of the day?
So this is, I think, one of the most fundamental questions. The gravity of the number of countries that are now supporting India's reform, India's membership in the UNSC, as well as the reform of the global governance system is, I think, growing. And that is essentially going to hit at the urgency that the world is going to look at with. So I think it's important that more and more countries are now in one camp rather than the other. There only remains a few obstructions in that field in terms of how global governance should be reformed. And I think the fact that it has a very strong context in the fact that G4, just a few, I think last month, revitalized their meetings and added a substantive footnote to the idea that the global governance should be reformed. And I think in that context, this comment is really important.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador A. Manikam, former Ambassador of India to Finland, and Vivek Mishra, visiting fellow at ORF. Thank you for joining us and helping us understand India-Finland relations in the context of Alexander Stubb's visit to India. Now let's take a look at other stories making the news. The chairperson of India's National Commission for Backward Classes, Hansraj Gangaram Ahir, visited Mahakaleshwar Temple in Ujjain on Thursday. The chairman expressed joy and reverence upon visiting the temple and on seeking the Almighty's blessings. Ahead of the International Women's Day 2026, India's Ministry of Ayush organized an engaging self-defense session which encouraged women to build confidence, awareness and personal skills for their safety. The event actually reflected a wonderful blend of empowerment, appreciation and togetherness. The traditional Phag festival was kicked off in the Indian city of Shimla. This happened on Thursday, and people expressed joy and enthusiasm on attending the Phag Mela, a traditional fair where women dress in local attire and they seek the blessings of deities. Well, still to come here on DD India News Hour. India's export mission empowers MSMEs for global competitiveness. The Winter Paralympics to kick off in Verona city of Italy on Friday.
One of India's newest states. One of India's oldest lands. Jharkhand is a hidden.
Take a front seat to witness the grandeur.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lin. The Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar and the BJP President Nitin Nabin were among 5 NDA candidates who filed their nomination papers for the Rajya Sabha polls on Thursday. They filed the papers in the presence of India's Home Minister Amit Shah at the office of the Assembly Secretary Khyati Singh. And the other NDA candidates who filed their nominations are BJP State General Secretary Shivesh Kumar, JDU, Ramnath Thakur and RLM's Upendra Kushwaha. DMK's Tiruchi Siva and J. Constantine Ravindran, AIADMK's Thambidurai, PMK's Ambumani Ramados, the Congress's M. Christopher Tilak and the DMDK's L.K. Sudish. These were among those who filed their nomination papers for the biennial election to the Rajya Sabha. India is steadily achieving new milestones in the field of global exports. The Export Promotion Mission, which was launched to connect micro, small and medium enterprises with international markets and also to boost their exports, is emerging as a significant initiative. This mission is a concrete step, in fact, towards making MSMEs globally competitive.
Today, India's exports are rapidly establishing their presence among the world's largest economies. Indian products are no longer confined to the country, but are firmly making their mark in global markets. Increasing orders, new markets, and growing global demand are clear signs that India is advancing in the export sector. To further expand this export from the MSME sector, on February 20th, 2026, Union Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal launched 7 new initiatives under the Export Promotion Mission, that is the EPM. The aim is to strengthen the micro, small and medium enterprise sector in global markets and boost the country's export capacity. The goal of the Export Promotion Mission is clear: to promote new products, new services, and new exporters. In early February, India's product exports saw a double-digit increase, indicating growing global confidence in India's exports. Under this mission, processes for MSMEs will be simplified, cheaper loans will be available, and support will be provided in meeting international standards. Logistics and warehousing infrastructure will also be strengthened. Projects like India Mart in Dubai will help Indian exporters directly reach markets in the Gulf countries, Africa, Central Asia, and Europe. The EPM, the Export Promotion Mission, is implemented in two parts: export incentive and export direction. It will be operated with digital monitoring. Under this, the Ministry of MSME, Ministry of Finance, banking sector, and Indian representatives abroad will work together. MSMEs will receive affordable loans for business. Upon fulfilling certain conditions, relief will be provided at an interest rate of 2.75%, along with an annual support of up to 50 lakh rupees. Exporters through e-commerce will be eligible for loans up to 50 lakh rupees and support for storing goods abroad up to 5 crore rupees. Additionally, support will be provided for entering new markets, international inspections and approvals, warehousing and freight costs. The government's goal is clear: to reduce export costs, simplify business processes, and provide every MSME an opportunity to connect with global markets. The Export Promotion Mission offers solutions to remove barriers to finance for exporters, particularly the MSMEs, ensuring they have access to affordable business and economic resources. This important initiative by the government to promote inclusive, decentralized, and sustainable export growth has been welcomed by industry organizations. The Export Promotion Mission is a significant step towards strengthening India's export sector, and its results are reflected in the continuous growth of exports. Bureau Report, DD India.
You're watching DD India News. Let's get you the sports news now. And India's Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia has chaired the high-level meeting in New Delhi to review India's preparations for the 2026 Asian Games. Senior officials from the Ministry of Sports and also the Sports Authority of India and other stakeholders, they briefed the minister on the country's readiness ahead of the event, ensuring that athletes receive every possible support to excel at this event. Now, the target is to surpass the historic 106 medal haul achieved at the 2026 Asian Games with strategic planning, dedicated preparation and unified coordination across all stakeholders. Over 700 Indian athletes are expected to compete across 40-plus sports disciplines at the 2026 Games, scheduled to be held in Japan from the 19th of September to the 4th of October. Some news about chess now, and the world champion D. Gukesh, who's having a pretty bad run. His hunt for a win continued as Iran's Parham Moghadashlu held the Indian ace to a draw in the 7th round of the Prague International Chess Festival in the Czech Republic. The 4 draws have come alongside 3 painful defeats for the world champion, and this could well be the time for the youngest ever world champion to look for certain reforms in his games. With just 2 rounds remaining, Gukesh sits in the bottom position with just 2 points. Meanwhile, the other Indian in the event, the defending champion Arvind Chintabaram, drew with Nodirbek Yakubov of Uzbekistan, and he remains in the 7th position after 7 games. Probably just a minor blip for Gukesh. He's definitely going to come back. The Winter Paralympics will kick off with a grand opening ceremony in Verona city of Italy on Friday. Over 600 athletes will compete in 6 different sports at 3 sites, and these are in northern Italy from the 6th to the 15th of March. The Dolomite ski resort of Cortina di Ampezzo will host most of the action. Milan's Sant'Aguela Arena will be the venue for the para ice hockey, while para biathlon and para cross-country skiing events will also take place in Val di Fiamma.
Next week's opening ceremony.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Paralympic flame.
Novak Djokovic says that he sees no reason to retire from tennis, given that he is still motivated to compete and is capable of beating some of the best players in the world. He's 38 years old, mind you, the Serb, and he's defeated the defending champion Jannik Sinner in the thrilling semi-final at the Australian Open, the Jannik Sinner, that is, in January, that is, and before he fell to the world number one Carlos Alcaraz in the final. But he also, took a set at least off Alcaraz in the final, proving he's still able to be in the top echelons of the sport. I mean, he is, after all, perhaps the greatest player who's played this game. Djokovic said that he has a phenomenal result, and so he's proven to himself that primarily and to others that he can still compete at the highest level and even beat these guys. He's a 25. He's looking for his 25th Grand Slam title. He's won 24 Grand Slam titles, and he still enjoys picking and choosing his schedule, which revolves mostly around the 4 Grand Slams and tune-up events. He also makes space for the Indian Wells tournament in the California desert, where he is a 5-time champion. That's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.